Hey everybody, this is Dr. Sho, the Japanese behaviorist. We have a guest today and we are going to talk about something exciting. We are going to talk about LitRPG genre, which is very similar to Isekai. So we are going to talk about the different similarities and differences between them. And with the guest, Brian Middleton, let me just introduce him. Okay, Brian Middleton is a board-certified behavior analyst and the podcaster who is passionate about exploring and understanding the world around him. He is also known as the Bearded Behaviorist. Hi, Brian.
Hi.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm really excited to talk about this topic. I'm a big old nerd and I love all sorts of things related, especially relating to fantasy and sci-fi. So
the last time I was a guest at your podcast, which by the way I'm gonna put the description and the link below, and we just happened to talk about isekai, and then you suggested something that I had no idea, which is LitRPG, right?
Yeah.
So and that and then we said like, oh, that's cool, let's just do the YouTube on it. And so do you want to introduce your podcast so everybody can
I can briefly mention that. I actually have a couple podcasts. Shows come on the O Behave podcast. It focuses on all things behaviorism. If you haven't had a chance to listen to it, please hop on over there. You can find it at anchor.fm/obehave. It's published on, the podcast is published on all the major podcasting platforms, but if you go to the Anchor website, it'll link it to whatever your preferred podcasting platform is, because I know everybody's got their favorites. So
yeah, it's pretty awesome. He has a lot of different guests and covers the topics that are fun and serious and everything. So yeah, definitely. Please check his podcast out. All right, so let's talk about LitRPG. So what is it?
So LitRPG stands for Literary Role-Playing Game. The first official LitRPG, or big air quotes there, official, was Dream Park by Larry Naveen and Stephen Barnes. It was basically, it was published in 1981, and it featured a story taking place inside of a theme park that was following basically LARPing, live action role play. The technology described was similar to augmented reality. And so that caught a lot of people's imagination, and there's been a variety of other things that have been done as well. But the term LitRPG did not get coined until Russian authors got a hold of it. And a lot of Russian authors started writing a lot of game lit or LitRPGs. And the literal translation for the Russian term is literary role-playing game. So the idea is that your character is following through a progression and is leveling up over time and gaining skills and things like that. A big reason why LitRPG has that name and terminology is because there's stats and things like that you would normally see in for example, a MMORPG.
That's an interesting point, because like you said, people started calling this genre as LitRPG like in, later on, right? In the last 10 years or so, right? Now it's the same for Isekai too, because there are, like Alice in Wonderland and Peter Pan and probably like Wizard of Oz, they all have that characteristics, but I think it's the past 10 years or so that it became Isekai as Isekai became a genre of itself. And and there are some characteristics that are unique to it, So for example, one is that the protagonist usually, right, in the most cases, reincarnate into another world, right? And that's usually it's from Japan, modern day Japan, to a sort of like a medieval fantasy European world, right? So like a world of Dungeons and Dragons. And LitRPG, is it like it's also like that, or like is it like the person transported to another world, or is it like
there's a couple variations that are going there. So there's the person who is a part of this world and then starts discovering, not necessarily discovering, but there are people who are part of a world and they're either discovered that they're a part of this world that has these characteristics, or they're just a part of this world and that's just the default. So, for example, the book Something, Full Murder Hobo, which, yes, that's the title, by Dakota Kraut, these people are used to this world and it's just who they are. And
so it starts from that world, like they're already in the world.
But then for other series, like, for example, Bushido Online or Life Reset, which are two really good series that I enjoy, the character is transported to that world through the venue of augmented reality games. So in the case of Life Reset, you actually start with the protagonist after the protagonist has been very successful in this game universe. And Shemer Kuznets, who is the author, he wrote this story from the perspective of this player who is now making a lot of his money from the game and is very successful. Then he gets betrayed by somebody who he would think would be a friend, and his player character's race is reset to a monster race. And that character, instead of logging out and just resetting his character and starting over, decides, well, I'm curious, I'm going to play as the monster race. And because the game system's not designed for that, he gets trapped in the game. And so his real world body is hooked up to a virtual reality harness and he has no way of getting out. The series just finished. I just finished the very last book about a month ago, and wow, Shemer did an amazing job writing a fantastic story. I'm very pleased with the conclusion.
Wow.
But in the so to contrast that with the Bushido Online story, the premise for that one is that a man who is a professional MMA fighter, he's in the semifinals for the world championship, and his opponent cheats, and in cheating causes him to lose his eyesight. And so this person who had a very clear future, was very good at what he did, his entire world is just destroyed, and he's now disabled, and he kind of goes into a funk. And his former coach, comes to him after he's been depressed and kind of isolating himself for a while and says, hey, this company that created this game, Bushido Online, they want to play test a therapeutic component of this. And they're willing to provide you with free access and even give you pay you for your time, and give you the necessary equipment to allow you to connect to this augmented reality if you agree to sign this agreement. And so story goes back and forth. Long and short, he agrees to go into this world, and in so doing, he didn't quite realize it, but by going into this augmented reality world, he realizes that he recovers his eyesight by going into this world. And it's a game world, but to him, it's more. It's regaining his eyesight. It's gaining some purpose.
So that's an interesting difference, because so it looks like RPG genre pretty much they are all aware or somewhat aware that they're diving into a world where when their body is still in the real world.
But
I mean, I'm gross overgeneralizing things, but because just for the purpose of comparison, because in isekai, it's kind of like there's no way to go back generally, right? You die, go back, go to the next world, or somehow you are transported into that world. And there's, typically the premise is that you don't have a way to go back, and you just need to figure it out how to live in this world. And another thing that's interesting to me is that almost all the times, isekai protagonist is a loser in real life, and then they become the sort of like a very special person in the isekai world, right? That we call it cheat, right? In Japanese, it's called cheat ability. They have a cheat ability, about like, a person may get a lot of magic powers, right? Or they're really good at like a sword, or they become immortal. They know the knowledge about the world or about the leveling system, and they can take advantage of it to become become somebody who is much more stronger than everybody in that world, right? The Jobless Reincarnation is one of the isekai animes where the guy is like a middle-aged jobless loser who gets transported into the another world and he was born as a baby with all the knowledge that he has and all the understanding of science and technology, and he approaches magic, right? He tries to acquire magic in that world from the age 0, right? And that's how he figured it out, how to become a better and better magician. And so that's kind of a typical template of isekai, whereas it looks like RPG, I can't say it, RPG.
Yeah,
it's not like that. They're like, some of them are already successful, and some of them are like they are consciously going to this another world, and they are try to make something out of it. One thing I wanted to talk about is you mentioned that this genre is really a kind of a coming from the independent publishers.
Yes.
Right. So can you talk a little bit about background?
As a genre, this series has really developed, and indie publishers have really jumped in. So I happen to know and be friends with, because I interviewed on one of my podcasts, Dakota Kraut and Dennis Vanderkerken. And Dakota is the CEO for Mountain Dale Press. And that's given me, just me knowing and following him and having a few conversations with him, not many, has given me a little bit more insight into the indie publishing side of things. Not a huge insight. I'm sure there's people who know way more than I do. But it's created a really big, loyal fan base. And I've noted that when it comes to publishing, yes, you can get physical books for these. But because they're indie publishing, they're usually going through the Amazon on-demand publishing feature. And it's easier to access books on Kindle, and then also it's easier to access books on Audible. When you search LitRPG, it comes up with 804 titles.
Wow.
So for a genre that started fairly recently to take off, and when I say fairly recently, I mean, like, yes, there's the precursor books, but really didn't start taking out until maybe 2012 2009, 2010, right about there.
Mhm.
That's a lot of publishing.
Yeah. So that's very interesting because the first part of that is that it started as an indie sort of. You also mentioned that some Russians are doing it and Ukrainians are doing it, and then it sort of got attention of the independent publishers, and then now it's available in Amazon and Audible and all that thing, because it's very similar to isekai genre, because most of those are coming from the website, in a Japanese website called Shosetsuka ni Naro, which means let's be a writer, right? So it's like it's a website where anybody can write and post, right? And so no professional writers, they're all amateur writers. And they just started this isekai movement, right? And then all of those now famous isekai stories, the slime is one thing, the spider one is another thing, the sealed hero is another thing. So all those are actually written by amateurs, right? And then they got picked up by the major publishing companies, and then it became a manga form, and then it became an anime form. So but what's interesting to me is that they both have this sort of like an amateur ground up movement, right, that came up in the system. So the next thing I want to ask you is some differences, right? So because there are some ideas that I don't really know if lit RPG has, and particularly what I'm interested in is the treatment of deities, right? So in isekai genre, being Japanese, it's not controversial to talk about gods, right? So let's say, if there's a kind of like a reincarnation of some character into a new world, you see, gods or goddesses show up, and then talk to the character and say, hey, I'm transporting you to another world, here is a gift, right? Or there are some gods involved in both worlds, and they're somehow controlling it, like a programmer, right? They're like a programmers of the world, and they have all the powers, and they give the protagonist the powers, and some of them challenges the gods. Some stories have gods as a ultimate evil, right? But they treat those deities as a very casual, like a casual things, right? Because we are in a culture where gods are not like absolute, right? So it doesn't become controversial, right? So I wanted to ask whether lit RPG, how it treats that type of being.
In the series that Underpowered Howard comes from, the Mythian series. So Underpowered Howard is a standalone book, but I recommend reading the series, the Mythian series, before you read it, because there are some spoilers in Underpowered Howard for the previous series. But John L. Monk, there's interactions between gods, and there's questions that come up relating to, well, what makes a god? What is the god doing? In most of the games, lit RPGs, including Awakened Online, Valerian Gate Online, the gods basically are forces that drive the story forward. Contrast that with the Divine Dungeon series, Arturian's Archives, which it turns out are linked to the Completionist Chronicles by Dakota Kraut. So Arturian's Archives is a spin-off series of the Divine Dungeon sequence that, frankly, I love them both, but if I have to choose a favorite, it's Arturian's Archives. There's a lot of Eastern philosophy and religion, things that come up in the Divine Dungeon sequence in Arturian's Archives. And so a part of this, because it's the subgenre of cultivation fiction, is that these characters are leveling up. And as they increase in their level, they start taking on characteristics of deity. And in the Completionist Chronicles, which is a more of a hard-lit RPG, there are characters in the Divine Dungeon sequence or series that actually take on roles as gods in that story. And that's where the controversy could come in, because somebody who is more rooted in Western religion and philosophy could see that as sacrilegious, could see that as possibly attacking their worldview. And I can understand that, but at the same time, like it's keep an open mind. Because it's one, it's fiction, and two, it's really interesting concepts. So
that's very interesting. Because I was thinking, when I did a video on the comparison between the Ghost in the Shell and the Matrix, one of the things I was thinking about was how two movies treat, godlike existence. And they're very different, right? And that's also reflected here too, because when you look at isekai stories, it doesn't. So even if a protagonist has superpower, so they don't typically act as a god who tries to impose some, who faces some moral dilemma. Which is very interesting, because in the Matrix, and even Superman too, right? They and LitRPG characters, they all face this issue that what to do when you have a strong, like a superpower. How do you want to use it so that the whole community benefits or not, right? And that way. That difference is very interesting, because isekai, like, they don't care, like they just I have a good life, and there's an obstacle, I'm just gonna defeat it, and then I'm gonna keep on having a good life. Whereas LitRPG goes into that particular theme, which is very deep, right? Which is much deeper and much more thought-provoking, but it's very interesting difference in approach. So
I will say this about anime specifically, not isekai, because I don't think One Punch Man falls under isekai roles. Yeah. But I will say that there are anime out there, such as One Punch Man, that take a fascinating approach. The thing I love about One Punch Man is that he is super powerful. He has Superman syndrome, which is that he can literally defeat any enemy in one punch. But the hardest combatant that he has to deal with is himself.
Right.
And he has to face his own doubt and his own struggles and those sorts of things. So maybe there's some isekai out there that has that.
That's a very interesting one, because what One Punch Man faces is very different from, let's say, the Watchmen, right?
Yeah.
The Watchmen is really about, like, who's gonna watch the Watchmen? Like, exactly, right?
Yeah.
But One Punch Man is like, it's asking about personal. It's kind of like a personal happiness, right? When am I gonna be happy with myself? When I have this superpower, then it really doesn't really go into, like, am I gonna save, this, the protagonist Saitama doesn't really pay attention to how can he resolve social conflicts. He's trying to resolve his own unhappiness or emptiness, something like that. But it's very, it's a niche. So it has a very different philosophical style.
Yeah, and just to go down this path just a little bit further before we get back on, I see this also with stuff like My Hero Academia versus, I mentioned Drew Hayes, the author. One of my favorite books, and the thing that introduced me to him was his book series, the Superpowered series, which is a completed series. There's 5 books in the series. And My Hero Academia is pretty straightforward. It's a superhero school. Character gains his superpowers through an unusual way. It has a personal struggle and has to grow into being a hero. And then you also follow the struggles of these other heroes in training and their growth. What Drew Hayes' Superpowered does, though, is it takes that same idea, and I don't know if the manga came before Drew Hayes' work or not, or if they happened simultaneously. But what I do know is like so in the Superpowered universe, you have supers, you have powers, and you have humans. Supers are heroes, the people who have powers and can control them. A powered is a person who has powers and abilities but does not have control over them. And then a human is just your typical everyday human. And so powereds are kind of a second-class citizen in this universe, this world, because they don't have control. So it could be something as harmless as bubbles spontaneously start coming out of your head and you have no reason to know, you have no understanding of why. Or it could be something as horrifying as you have the ability to absorb the energy around you, and so you unknowingly absorb all the heat out of you in the environment around you, thus freezing everybody to death instantaneously. Like, it's terrifying. And the story follows 4 or 5 students who are actually just they're former powereds. They went through an experimental procedure, and they're going through the hero certification program, and only their teachers know that they're former powereds. And basically they're being tested to see whether or not this procedure can resolve the problem of the powereds. And so it adds this additional layer of social dynamic of the individuals being afraid of themselves and whether or not they can cause harm. On top of the societal components, because if their secret gets out, how are people going to treat them different? What is going to happen differently?
I think it's a cultural difference. Like, what are you going to focus on, and how do you progress your storyline? What are the issues that the protagonist faces? They differ, and that's pretty fascinating.
And just to throw this out here, because it's something that just occurred to me, I will tell you that a good portion of the authors that I've interacted with in LitRPGs are professionals. So, like, for example, Dennis has an advanced degree. Dakota is a computer engineer, or was, I should say. There's some professional authors out there who are former military, or former military contractors, or a little bit of both. So in some ways, and I'm not saying that this is the only thing, because there are other authors out there who are just, they started out as amateurs, they just loved the genre and they wrote it. But I think that might be one of the characteristics that pushes towards those deeper questions. And then that also creates that culture of asking those deeper questions. And because there's a culture of asking, or subculture, I guess you could say, of asking those deep questions, then
definitely.
Then the reader, who then turns into the author, is going, wait, how can I make this? I mean, I want to make this more interesting. What is the conflict? What is the thing that I need to address?
Yeah, definitely. That's a great point. Yeah. So that kind of like leads into another aspect, which is more controversial.
Yes.
And fun about it is that, recently in isekai genre, Jobless Reincarnation anime became a controversial because of the expression of some sexual content, and it kind of makes sense, right? Because this protagonist is this like a middle-aged guy who was reincarnated as a baby, and the story describes a perspective of a baby who has 30 or like a middle-aged old guy's understanding of the world, and there are some sexually provocative things going on, right? And you can say, oh, that's just Japanese doing Japanese things, but interestingly, there's some aspects to that in LitRPG as well, right?
Yes. So there's a subgenre of lit RPGs. It's actually kind of its own genre in that it interlocks with lit RPGs, but it's harem fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really interesting because I accidentally stumbled across this, and some of these, out of morbid curiosity, I read some of them because I was just like, okay, what the heck is going on here? And some of them are not well done,
Mm-hmm.
but there are others that are very well done. There's definitely a lot of sexism built into a lot of these. I have seen some that have, again, been better well done, but still not. It's if it's not something that you can handle, then don't read it, basically.
Yeah, it's very. So I mean, isekai, there are a lot of harem related stories, and it's all about just kind of a some men's fantasy about having a lot of women, right? And which is pretty controversial when you think about it, because it's all about slaves, right?
Yeah.
And maid, I don't know how to, like those servants, right?
Yeah.
So they're trying to form some kind of a harem in with the slaves and servants, and that's very sexism, it's pornographic in that sense, right?
Yes.
But it's interesting that both isekai and RPG has that like a particular like a little niche there.
Yeah. Well, and some of them that I've seen that are pretty well done. For example, the Mask of the Template series, I haven't finished it, but by Sibelius, basically is diving into questions of how power is transferred and where power is gained and that sort of thing. And in that series, the women actually that sleep with the main character gain power from him.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because he is a template, basically a regular human in a world of monsters. It turns out that basically Tartarus is real, and that monsters from all the different cultures actually, this is where they go, where they live.
Mm-hmm.
And so the protagonist has to face the question of, he gains power from them and they gain power from him. And as a character, he's very well written, but at the same line, you still have those underlying challenges. But then as a part of the story, there's kind of a need. And so there's more consent involved in that particular case. There's another series that I started to read and I didn't like it because it was not going into consent based. And I was just like, nope. I'm not supporting anybody who writes this sort of stuff.
The last topic is, we are both behaviorists, and we look at the world from a behavioristic point of view.
There's a behavior analytics side of just lit RPGs in general, because the premise is you do a behavior, you receive experience, you level up.
Yeah, that's a very like a simple behavioristic thing, right? And that's very interesting because we, in the lit RPG and Isekai, they have that sort of like a status kind of thing, like it's based on the statistics. So whenever
you have like a heads up display, or you get some sort of notification.
And then whenever you fight, you beat a monster, you get some points, and that's that will increase your ability and profile, which is like a direct reinforcement contingency right there. Which is a part of the things that makes us addicted to a video game. But
and in the Chronicles of Ethan series that I mentioned, Mytherian series, it's really kind of funny because the author asked the question about like, okay, what are the game developers actually reinforcing? And so the game developers are reinforcing these certain types of behaviors, and because the game itself is glitchy, there are behaviors that are punished that should be reinforced.
I see.
And that shows up in Underpowered Howard and in the Chronicles of Ethan. Mythian's I think the first book in the series. I was wrong. It's the Chronicles of Ethan series. By John L. Monk, and you see that kind of thing cropping up periodically. Not so frequently are the authors aware of it, but there are some authors who point these things out. Like another book series that was really kind of enjoyable, and it's kind of a lit RPG, but not. It's kind of on the edge there. Is Orconomics. Yes, I did say Orconomics.
Okay.
And the second book is called Son of a Lich. I'm looking up the name of the author. It's J. Zachary Pike. And in that particular series, a core characteristic. So this is more fantasy, but there's lit RPG aspects to it, kind of. But in this particular series, the author observes that because health potions take somebody from the edge of death or feeling a lot of pain and instantaneously alleviate that and heal them up, that he observes that it's addictive, and that you start getting sav heads, which are people who pursue the high. And these people self-injure and then take the potion to alleviate the self-injury, and they're crippled by that.
Wow!
And you even have a character in the story who's affected by it too.
What an idea!
And when you get those authors who click those ideas and just and they run with it, that makes it so much better.
Yeah. So, and you also already mentioned, something about relation frame theory and acceptance and commitment therapy being taking place, or you can apply that lens to some of those stories.
So specifically with the Arturian's Archive series, the protagonist Arturian, he is an old man. Book one, he's near the end of his life. He fully anticipates that he will be dying within a year or two of when the book starts. And he's lived a full life and has had to overcome many challenges. And therefore, because that is the case, he has kind of a perspective on life. And then a terrible thing happens, and he has to use his resources to change things. And one of those things that he has to face is the despair and the feeling that he failed. But he identifies his values. So Arturian goes, okay, what is my values? What is the thing that I want to accomplish? He has a goal, yes, but his goals are informed by his values. Values being something that a goal is something you can achieve, and it is. But a value is something you're moving towards. So, for example, a goal would be, I would like to make my wife happy, right? But a value would be, I want to be a good partner. Okay? If my wife were to pass away or something else were to happen, maybe I get divorced, I can still work towards being a good partner. But and that's still something I can achieve. In fact, you know what? I can work towards being a good partner with my business partner. I can work towards a good friend. I can work towards being a good sibling. You know, those sorts of things. So Arturian identifies his values, and he also at the same time accepts what has happened. So the opposite of acceptance is experiential avoidance. It's basically trying to avoid the pain. Like a lot of times people move towards substances to try to avoid the pain, or they dive into something else. They try to distract themselves. But what Arturian does is he accepts that the bad thing happened, and he's aware of it happening, and he's not going to struggle with that. And he's not going to struggle with his emotions related to that. So it's, I accept that I'm feeling these feelings, but now he's identified his values and he's taking committed action towards his values. So I just identified the 6 characteristics of ACT, also known as the ACT hexaflex. There's other ways of approaching it, but you can be very behavior analytic in doing acceptance and commitment therapy. And I'm actually participating in a behavior analyst ACT practicum right now. I'm actually just completed week 2, and I'm learning about nonlinear contingency analysis, which is blowing my mind. I'm really excited by it. But the idea here is that in that story, over and over again, the character comes up against a really challenging thing, and he has to exercise each one of these things either all together or one at a time. And in the latest book in the series, right now, there's the book 8 just came out. I finished it, loved it. One of the things the character is doing a lot of is revisiting his past and learning to accept what's happened.
Nice.
And so I'm really excited for later books, especially since I found out that Dennis drops a reference to me in one of the later books. He actually wrote it in. If you read it and he refers to the bearded one, hi. That's me.
Awesome.
But the idea being that, like, that's one way that behaviorism shows up, and that's more relating to the mental health stuff and those sorts of things.
So that's very good, because those writers are not aware of acceptance and commitment therapy or behavior analysis.
Dennis is now. He's aware of it now. That. I taught him about it.
Yeah, now aware of them. So in a way that we are looking at, they're describing a real phenomenon in life, and then taking that into their fiction. And that can be analyzed from, behavior analytic lens. And it's very, and that's kind of like that's very interesting, right? That's very amazing to see that type of thing happening. We're gonna finish by Brian recommending some books. I know you have like tons of books that you want to recommend, but maybe if you can give us like 5 or so, so we can start.
Okay.
And yeah.
If I could narrow it down to 5 books that you could read. If you want a good fun one, it's a standalone book, so you don't have to read any others. How to Defeat a Demon King in 10 Easy Steps by Andrew Rowe. Beautifully written, very funny, very entertaining. For the Arturian's Archives, I need to find book 1. Okay. Axiom AXIOM, Axiom. It's Arturian's Archives Book 1 in the Divine Dungeon series. If you like it, read books 1 through 3, then read the first 3 or 4 books of the Divine Dungeon series, and then continue reading Arturian's Archives, because it actually continues the storyline and completes the Divine Dungeon series. Just so you know, Divine Dungeon, the concept is that a dungeon is a sentient or self-aware creature that creates the environment where players or cultivators can go to cultivate. And because if the dungeon ever wins in those fights, because it gains more than it loses, and because it's also attracting essence or whatever it is, ether or whatever you want to call it, to it, then the cultivators have a reason to be there, and the dungeon itself also gains levels and progresses. So that's the reason for the name. I promise it's not BDSM. So if you want something that's really thought-provoking, The Chronicles of Ethan, Mythian being book 1. If you want something that's more throwing the character into a new world, where this is the world that they're living in, either Advent by Xander Boyce or Equalize by Ryan de Bruin. And then the last one, the first book in Bushido Online, is The Battle Begins. So Bushido Online, The Battle Begins by Nikita Thorne and Christian Rummel. And that series is very well put together and thought out. That one's more of, I did mention it. That one's more the game style where you're going in and the player is discovering. So those would be the top 5 or 6 that I'd recommend if you want to start somewhere.
All right. Thank you so much, Brian.
It was a real pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah, it was. It was really a lot of fun. And yeah, definitely. I'm so excited because as we talked, there are so many, similarities and differences are coming up, and they're all very, culturally interesting.
Yeah.
And I could see a lot more craft and thinking about the system is going into LitRPG, much more than Isekai genre, and which is very interesting. A lot more ideas about different aspects of that whole, world building, which is really, one of the exciting parts that I could see from you, and your passion about it is really awesome. So thank you so much for coming.
It was a real pleasure. I look forward to collaborating again. And
yeah, definitely. And everybody, please check his podcast. There are a lot more going on in his podcast. And we put all the details and books and titles and all the things in the description section below. And please let us know what you think about LitRPG, if you already know, if you're already a fan of it, or, Isekai. So thank you everybody for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Well, I should say ありがとうございました, right? I forgot to say.
That's okay.